Hi everyone, welcome to North and South Homestead. I'm Kim, and today our video is for the beginner gardener. If you've ever tried to grow a garden before, you know that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It seems like you could just move some grass out of the way, throw some seeds in, and it should grow, right? Well, that's not exactly how it goes, unless you were just born with a green thumb to begin with, which I was not. So it took me around 7 years to be able to grow a really productive, good garden. And I had to learn a lot of things along the way. Pardon the dog in the background. And so I thought, with the situations that's going on in the world today, last year a lot of people tried to grow a garden for the first time and they didn't really have very good success with it. And a lot of people will probably try to grow a garden again this year. So in this video I'm going to give you some tips to help you grow a better garden from the beginning. Now we'll walk through this kind of fast, so if you need to replay it, just replay it. So I'm going to give you some quick tips on how to grow a better garden your first time or second time around. Okay, first thing you need to do is decide what kind of seeds you would like to grow. What kind of plants? Tomatoes, cucumbers, corn, green beans, whatever it be. Write it down on a piece of paper, but don't try to grow stuff that your family is not going to eat. Stay with the basics your first few years and learn how to do them really great. So after you have decided which plants you want to grow, then go ahead and order those seeds. Get them in kind of quickly, because last year the seeds were nowhere to be found. Companies were out. Tons of people decided they wanted to grow a garden. Don't get stuck in that situation this year. Go ahead and get those seeds now while they're still available. Okay, so you have decided what you want to grow. Got your seed order in. Got that covered. The next thing you want to do is pick your area. The area that you pick to grow in, it needs to get a good amount of sunshine and not be blocked by a bunch of trees and stuff. If you have no option, then you have no option. But if you have an area that doesn't have trees blocking the sun, perfect. Okay, so now you've picked that area. How big of a garden do you want? Now my garden is, the rolls are almost 50 feet long. And in that, I can get in my rolls with some walkway on each end of the rolls to be able to walk around. I can get 25 tomato plants in that roll. So if that helps you out figuring out how big you want to make it, then good. Okay, so decide how big of a garden you want to grow, how many of what plants you want to grow. You know, are you planting just for some slicing tomatoes to eat on sandwiches, or are you trying to grow enough tomatoes to feed your family fresh tomatoes throughout the growing season, or are you trying to grow enough tomatoes to feed your family for an entire year? That means you're going to be canning or preserving in some other way, and so all of that depends on how big of a garden you want to grow. So figure that out, because if you're trying to grow for the entire year but you don't give yourself enough space or enough seeds bought or enough plants bought, then you know you've just made a boo-boo. Okay, so decide how many you're going to grow, what you're growing for. You know, just for fresh eating and preserving, or fresh eating and preserving for an entire year. It's up to you. But that will mean you have to do some more research to find out how many plants you actually need for all the things that you want to preserve for a year. Like we do, we're huge tomato sauce people here. Anything tomatoes, tomato juice, tomato sauce, tomato paste, spaghetti sauce, salsa, you name it. So we do a lot of rolls of tomatoes. I think last year's garden there were 6 or 7 rows of just tomatoes. And we're a family of 5 that lives on this land, so and like I say, 25 plants in a row, so you can do the math on that. Okay, so you've got your seeds, you've decided what you want to grow and how much of it you want to grow, you've got your seeds ordered, you've picked your area, now you need to mark it off. Now you don't want to wait until the last minute to go out and start tilling a garden up and stuff, because this is a little process here. So take you some little stakes out, a tape measure, some string, and measure it off the spot that you want. And then from there, till that spot up. And then at least let it set a few days before tilling it again. Best to wait a week, but a few days if you have weather that's not so rainy, then that will work too. The reason is that you've got all that grass there that you need to break up. And a little way to help with the grass issue that's not going to be all broken up by that first run through the tiller is to get a pitchfork, or just walk by hand if you have to, and just get the big clumps of grass out and put them in a compost pile. Let them compost down on their own. But you want as much of that grass out of your garden area as possible. And once you do that, and it's been a few days to a week, then till it again. Now, a lot of people work. They don't have time to go out weeding a garden and keep the tilling up in between the rows and this and that, and it becomes just an overgrown jungle that they don't get to enjoy the fruits of their labor from. The greatest thing that I can tell a beginner gardener, which doesn't really know a whole lot about what they're doing and everything else, is to cover that ground. Either a big tarp, you can get the real thick black plastic from Lowe's or Home Depot or any place like that. Lay it down to cover that so that grass and weeds will not start growing back up, because if you don't cover it, nature will cover herself. She will regrow stuff that's in your way. So we use the DeWitt landscape barrier, and it's fabulous. I love this stuff. Absolutely love it. You can get it on eBay. Not eBay. No. You can get it on Amazon. It's called DeWitt. And okay, and we get 2 different sizes for large areas. We get the 6 foot wide. I do not recommend that just for a normal garden. For the normal garden, we get the 4 foot wide. So if you want to look for that, it's black and it's got yellow lines down it. That will help when you look it up. But each row is 300 feet. So figure out, how big your garden is to figure out how many rows that you need. Now you do need to overlap. Now I overlap about 1 foot of each one. So the roll is no longer 4 feet, it's 3 feet. So, Okay, if you get the weed barrier to cover it, it's fantastic stuff and you can use it over and over again throughout the years. You cannot just cut it with scissors or knife because it will fray. So you need some kind of propane torch to cut it with so that those ends seal back together. You also use that to cut the spots that you're going to stick the plants in. So if you've got a row of tomatoes, it's 50 feet long, and you have walkways on each side of the row so that you can go around the whole garden from the outside of it, then you figure out how much space tomatoes need to be apart from each other, and you mark that on the weed barrier, and then you take the little torch and you cut out a circle there for that plant. Now my circles, I don't know, they're probably about that big, however big that is. Probably about a normal coffee can lid or something size. Now you can mark it with a piece of sidewalk chalk, any kind of chalk like that, but I usually use a can of cheap spray paint. Just put them where they need to go after you've measured the spots off. And then when you go back with the propane torch, then you know exactly where you need to burn those holes at. Okay, if you do the weed barrier torch, you also need landscape staples. You can also get those on Amazon, and you want to get the 6-inch. They come in a red box. I don't remember the brand, but look for a red box, look for 6-inch, and there's a whole bunch of them in there. You will need those. That's what holds the landscape fabric down. If you don't, the wind will come through, pull it up, and you've got a big mess. Okay, that is the easiest way to start a garden that's not going to work you to death, is to cover the ground after you have it tilled and stuff. But let's back up a spot. Now, if you're getting the weed barrier and stuff, you need to order that ahead of time so that it will be there when you actually go to lay it down with the staples and a propane torch of some sort. Okay, so after you till that garden for the second time, then you want to add some stuff to it. Now, if you've never had your land tested or this and that, you don't know what it needs, what it's lacking, or anything else like that. So here is just some quick things. Rabbit manure. If we're just doing individual holes because the fabric has already been down, we've already grown plants in it for the year, and we've just pulled those plants out and left the landscape fabric down for the next year. We're not tilling that year, so we don't have to pull all of that back up. Then we just take a little thing, get the dirt in each little hole out, and break it up a little, and then we put 2 scoops of rabbit manure in there. Okay, and then we'll put some of the other stuff in there too. But if you're just starting a garden that's not already covered and you're getting ready to till it for the second time, then you just want to put all of this in to begin with. You want to put rabbit manure in. Now, if you don't have rabbits, so that you have your own manure to put in it, then right now is the time to start asking your friends online, on Facebook, wherever, do they have rabbits and do they have manure that you can have? Okay. If you cannot find anyone, you may want to go buy you some rabbits so that you create your own manure. If that's the case, then you will want to look up some videos on how to raise rabbits in your backyard. And then it'll teach you that. It's pretty easy, but if you don't know, then you don't know. So you would need to look that up. You can also go online and different places like that and find people that have rabbits that actually sell rabbit manure, and you can get it that way. Now, rabbit manure is the best because it's a cold compost. It's not going to burn your plants up. You can put it right over your plants. It's not going to harm them in any way. You don't want to do that with cow or horse or any kind of that manure, because it will just kill your plants out, because that manure is not composted all the way. It's a hot compost. It's a hot manure. Okay, so now, because you don't know anything about your ground, okay, you may have tons of rocks, you may have hard clay, it may be deficient in all kinds of things. So you want to lay the rabbit manure to it. Okay, then from there, here is a quick fix on minerals. Go down to a feed store of some sort and buy a bag of all stock minerals. Okay, now we're not going all non-GMO and stuff on this. So if you can't find rabbit manure somewhere, then if you can find some black cow or something like that at Lowe's or somewhere, and you're not worried about it being all organic, then go for it. Get that instead. But with the minerals, you don't know what your land is missing, so just take some minerals and just sprinkle them down each roll. When you've done that, you're also going to want some calcium to put in there. And so you'll want to put some of that in there. And then till that in. After you're done tilling it in, then you want to cover it up. That's when you need your cover, whether it's the black plastic or a tarp or the landscape fabric, the landscape weed barrier fabric that we use. That is what you want. Now please, if you're going to buy the landscape fabric stuff, do not waste your money on the cheap stuff at your local stores. It's horrible. We've been there, we've done that, we've tried it, we've spent a lot of money and regretted it. The weeds just pushed the stuff up. It was a big, big mess, so don't do it. And here is the other thing about it. The DeWitt weed barrier from Amazon will end up costing you less in the long run than buying the rolls from any local store that's not any good. So don't skimp on that if you're buying the weed barrier. Okay, so we've got our seeds picked, we've got our garden area picked, we've tilled, we've measured, we've tilled, we've got the big clumps of grass out, we have added some kind of fertilizer, be it rabbit manure, black cow from Lowe's, or whatever else. Excuse me. We've got that added in. We've got our calcium added in. We've got some minerals and stuff, all stock from your local feed store. All stock minerals. That will do great. And okay, and now we've got our landscape barrier down. Now, if you want to put a trellis up, we trellis our tomatoes and green beans and cucumbers so that they will grow up instead of out everywhere. Because if you step on those vines, you kill the plant. So we trellis ours up. It's a space saver and it makes it much easier going in and harvesting and such. You can use cattle panels to trellis it. We put T-posts in. We burn a little spot in the weed barrier. We put the T-posts in, and then we put fencing up for the trellis. We use zip ties to hold it in place. Zip ties is a homesteader's best friend. Now you can either buy cattle panels to put up there, which is much easier to actually install and take down. They do require 2 people to do it because those are heavy and they're 16 feet long, but those are also $20+ a piece and they're only 16 feet long. In buying the rolls of garden fencing, I know that Lowe's carries it. I don't know who else. You can get 100 feet of fencing for like $80-something plus tax. And that's what we use because we grow a lot of stuff. We need a lot of trellises, and it's much cheaper to do that than putting cattle panels on it. So just a tip there, $80-something plus tax for 100 feet. You can have your trellis in, just put some T-posts in, cut your fence the size that you need it, and zip tie it on there. Boom, you've got a trellis. And so if you want trellises, that's an easy way to do it, a cheap way. Not so cheap if you go cattle panel, but it just depends on what. Okay, so now we've got our trellises up and everything, and now it comes to the plants. Now, if you're going to try to start seeds inside on your own, that is a whole nother skill level. If you want to put the money into the system and try it on your own, then here are some things that will help that. You're going to need some kind of shelf. You're going to need some grow lights. You're going to need to mount those grow lights to the shelves. You're going to need a surge protector to hook all those lights into a plug. Another thing is seed starting heat mats. You can also get those online. Last year or the year before, some Walmarts had them, but not all. So again, online would be your best friend. And you will need seed trays, and you'll also need the trays to go underneath without any perforated holes in it so that your water isn't going all over your house. You will also need some seed starting mix. And now you can buy that. Jiffy makes one that's organic, and it's like $5 and something for a small bag of it. You're not going to get very far with that, but you can make your own. Jiffy seed starting mix is a simple little mix that you can throw together yourself. You can buy a huge bag of peat moss from any of your garden stores or feed stores. So to make your own mix, you need a bag of peat moss, and you need a bag of something called vermiculite. Now, your feed stores will normally carry that. If they don't have vermiculite, you can use perlite. They're basically the same, but vermiculite at feed stores, you can get a big, huge bag. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but that's what goes in the peat moss to help get air in it to help fluff it up and stuff. Okay, so here's what I would do. I would get one of those big Rubbermaid totes or a cheap brand. It doesn't matter. Put some peat moss in there. You're going to have to soak it down really well with water because it's going to take some time for that to absorb the water. You're also going to put the vermiculite or perlite in with it and stir that all up. Get it real good. Once all of that has water in it and it's not floating little brown stuff to the top, then you're ready to fill your seed trays and put your seeds in. Use labels so that you don't forget what you've planted, because you will. Popsicle sticks from your kids or from craft department, or you can actually get the little plastic tabs from the garden sections, and you can write on them with a Sharpie marker. So once you do that and you've got them on the shelves, you've got the grow lights on them. Once they come up, they don't need sunlight until they start sprouting. Once they start sprouting, they need sunlight. After they're big enough to go out in the garden, you need to harden those off first, because they've been inside in controlled temperatures in your house, and so they've not been in wind and different fluctuating temperatures and rain and all this stuff. So you need to take those trays out a little bit at a time, like 10 minutes one day, take them back in, 15 minutes the next day, take them back in, 30 minutes, so on and so forth, until they can stay out there until nighttime, or where the temperatures are too low and you need to bring them back in. And that's what hardening off is. It's getting the plants used to the outside weather when they've been growing inside. If you don't do that, your plants will just die. If you don't want to go that route of trying to grow your own seeds, you should try to grow some just to get some practice at it, because it is a skill in its own that does take some time to learn how to do right, and to be successful with. But if you're just buying plants from a garden center or whatever, you still want to know when to actually put them in the ground, because if you put them in the ground too early, they're not going to survive. You're going to get a frost and they're going to get killed off. So one of the things to do, whatever area you're in, I can't tell you I could tell you my area, but if you don't live in this area, then it's not going to do any good for you. Mr. Google Pants, type in growing zone for, I don't know, what's a town? Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Let's go with that. And it'll tell you what growing zone you're in. So it'll be zone whatever, and then you know. Some of the seed packages on the back will tell you when to plant for that growing zone, but some don't. Another thing that you need to Google to find out is when is the last frost date in your area. So just type that in and it will tell you. Now ours is in May, and it'll tell the date in there. If you plant your plants before that, be prepared to cover them to make sure that the frost doesn't kill them off. Best not to plant them until your last frost date has passed. That way you're out of the woods and your plants will thrive. They'll start growing. When you first plant them, you're not going to see a lot of growth in them because they're getting used to being transplanted. All plants will have a little bit of transplant shock from the little pot that they were in to being in the ground. So it'll take a couple of weeks and then they'll just start taking off. Okay, now we've got that in. Okay, some plants, they have a lot of pest problems. If you're growing cabbage or anything like that, then you are going to have some cabbage moths, whatever, a broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, that kind of stuff. You may want to buy some, what's it called, Agrabah roll cover. You can also get that on Amazon. And it just makes a little tunnel. It goes over and it will keep the moths from being able to lay eggs at your plants, and it will keep them from being able to eat your plants up, eat your crop up. Okay, so Agrabah floating roll cover, that's a good one. And now that comes in 3 different types. You can get heavy, which will, is also a frost protector. You can get medium weight and you can get lightweight. So it just depends on your area and what you're wanting it for. If you're just wanting to keep the moths from laying eggs and getting the little moths eating your plants up, then the lightweight will work. Okay, what else? Tomato plants. If you're growing tomato plants, chances are you will end up with tomato hornworms. They're these scary looking worms with little horns on them, and they will destroy your tomato plants really fast. So they have this great little flashlight on Amazon. Again, it's not a lot of money, like $10 or something like that, and it's a black light. And so if you are seeing some damage on your plants, or you're just going to check them to make sure that nothing is going to go wrong, because a tomato hornworm can destroy an entire tomato plant in one night. So you just go out in the evening time with that little black light flashlight, and the stripes on that tomato hornworm will just glow. It's fantastic. And then you just wear you some gloves out there, take you a little container to pick them off and stick them down in, and you're good to go. It's a great little thing. Okay, something else. If you're growing a garden, you're going to get aphids and such. So it's these tiny little bugs. You can order a thing of ladybugs online, and actually I think you can get them on Amazon also. And you just release them in your garden, and if your garden has aphids, they will eat all of the aphids, and you know the aphids are gone when the ladybugs go away too. Okay, these are not those Chinese bugs, these are the actual ladybugs. Okay. Another way, though, is to get neem oil. And you buy neem oil, you follow the directions on it, and you go out and you spray your plants. Another thing for other type of pests is called BT. And you would just follow the directions on that also. And with those, that should pretty much cover your pest problems. Okay, let's see. If you are doing raised beds, you don't want to dig in your ground, maybe you've got tons of rocks and stuff like that, here's some tips on that. If you're going to build beds above the ground and you're going to have dirt put in them, you know that all of these hardware stores and gardening stores, feed stores, whatever, they carry dirt in a bag that you can buy. Let me tell you, for many years now, that dirt has not been composted all the way down yet. And you put it out in a bed and it burns your plants up because it's just still too hot. No amount of pouring water on it is going to fix that. It just needs time. And so best bet on that is to go to some kind of nursery that does their own compost, that is actually already composted all the way down and ready to go in your bed. But just be aware that if you're buying dirt from the other stores, like I know Lowe's carries it and Walmart always gets it in and stuff, it is not ready for you to plant in that year. It's going to be at least the next year before that is ready. Because I mean, it's mostly a lot of sticks and stuff. It's not, I wouldn't even classify it as soil or dirt, but they do. Okay, starting the seeds inside, if you don't want to go the whole crazy road of getting a shelf and grow lights and heat mats and all of that, you can do it without getting all of that, as long as you have a window that will get enough sunlight that those seed trays can go in. Or a patio door. We have French doors, and I just tend to put them over by the French doors, and that seems to work fine with us. But again, I've been doing it for a lot of years. So another thing is we do have a greenhouse, and so once they start getting so tall, if the weather is alright outside, then I will take them and put them in the greenhouse and have them out of my kitchen floor, dining room area where the French doors are. And that leads me to, if you want to build a greenhouse. Greenhouses can be very expensive. You can order them. I think growersolution.com has lots of greenhouse kits and this and that you can buy, but you're going to pay a lot of money for them. And you can build a cattle panel greenhouse pretty cheap. Um, 3 cattle panels is what ours is. They're like $20 a panel, and then you need just a wood frame to go around it, and some screws. You're going to need some hardware, not hardware, some fence staples. They're U-shaped, to hammer that cattle panel down to the wood frame at the bottom. Then you're going to need some zip ties and some plastic. And so the greenhouse plastic you can get from Amazon again, for a greenhouse, a cattle panel greenhouse that's 3 panels long. Then the price of that plastic is about $120 something, somewhere around through there, but it lasts for 4 years. You're not going to have to change that unless something falls and damages it or something, or if your husband gets the weed eater too close and oops. So that's some tips on that. If you want to really get into gardening, you want to start your own seeds, and you need a greenhouse to be able to put all these plants and stuff in, then I would suggest a cattle panel greenhouse. We've had one up for years. It works great. Yes, one of the big fancy greenhouses would be nice, but when it comes down to the price, I would rather just add some more panels onto my greenhouse to make it bigger and save a whole lot of money. Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. It's just a quick way to get your garden going when you haven't grown a garden before, or if you've tried a garden and it just didn't work out right. There's some pointers there to help you along the way. Definitely my biggest thing that I would suggest is the DeWitt weed barrier. Now, we're not getting paid for any of this, okay? So I'm just telling you from our experience what has worked for us, what has saved the most time, what has made gardening very enjoyable to us. It's taken a lot of the hard work out of it, but you do have to get it prepped to begin with. So you know, tilling is not an easy thing if you're a woman, and sometimes not so easy for a man. And a lot of times beginners, they don't dig down deep enough when they're first tilling a new spot, and so you know, you can have a lot of issues there. But a lot of people, beginners, they think that you can just till a spot and everything will grow right, and that's not always the case. A lot of times you need to add stuff into that, and that's where the manure comes in and the calcium comes in. Your plants need calcium. You see a lot of tomatoes, if you grow them, they're bad on the ends. It's called blossom rot. It's because they didn't have enough calcium. A quick fix, if you've already got your fabric down and you've already got your holes burnt and you're not tilling that year, and you can't find the calcium at a store in the gardening section, then for each hole where a plant goes, crush up 2 tums. Crush them into just powder and just dump it in there, and it will give that plant the calcium that it needs for the season. So there's some tips. First thing to do, find your frost dates, find your zone, growing zone, decide what you're going to plant, order your seeds right away, figure out the size of your garden, then order your weed barrier if you're going that way, and then go from there. Make sure that you get that manure and stuff in there, because that is what's going to make the big difference in your plants. It's going to make them healthy and strong. It's going to help. That's going to help fight off some pest issues alone. And when you don't know what your soil is going to do, then just go ahead and give it a boost anyways. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some valuable tips out of it. I hope you'll try growing a garden this year if you haven't before, or if you have and it just hasn't done well. I hope you will take all this into consideration and give it a shot again. It really is peaceful to go out in your garden and just enjoy the quiet and the nature and see the bounty that has came from your hands being in that dirt. It's amazing. Please smash that like button if you haven't already. Please subscribe. We love you, and until next time, God bless you.